And if, Teresa, would you mind calling roll, please?
Sure, absolutely. I'm sorry, we're eating donuts. Thank you, Ron, for the donuts. Joycelyn? Joycelyn?
Here.
Michael? Lori? Michelle?
Sorry, I was unmuting. I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. The first item is to approve the agenda. And I'm guessing everybody has access to it from board docs or whatever, so.
And what I'd like to recommend is that we move agenda item number 6, the budget lines, up to right after approval of the minutes. So that way we can get that done while we still have a quorum in case Michelle has to leave early. That's okay.
Could I, sure. So we'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the adjustment of item number 6 being moved to item number 4, and then we'll adjust the numbers accordingly.
So moved. This is Joycelyn.
Thank you, Joycelyn. Second?
Second.
Thank you, great. Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any negatives or abstain? Wonderful, it's approved. So the first item we'll be addressing are the budget line items.
So let's, Brian, do you want to go ahead and go over that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Is an update in the board docs version and to the one that we handed out, because I accidentally cut a line off of the top line, which is the core technology budget. So is it? Yeah, they have it on the digital version now that Cody is presenting. So thank you, Cody and Ellie, for fixing that last minute for me. So there's. Go ahead.
I'll help.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're okay.
Okay. So just looking at the budget for next year, it's pretty status quo from the previous year.
7 billion.
So the top line has the core technology budget that mainly IT works from. It has a lot of contracts, support contracts, those types of things are all in there for that. And that's the $1.7 million line item. And then the next 3 are for our data connections and telephone services and all those types of things that we use to connect up to the branches and for our main internet connection. Also in there is once our grant money ends for some of our hotspots and those types of things, we have to cover a few months of this next fiscal year for those. Those are in there. And then the next line item are the things that we talked about last month, which is the self-check and storage system monies that we moved over to the capital project fund, right, Steve?
Right.
So that we can take care of replacing self-checks next year and doing a storage system upgrade in the data center. And then the next ones we always include in this area. This is kind of some line items that we put in the final budget that we put on the website and we have available for people to look at. We always kind of include it here because a lot of the technology stuff that we do helps support the virtual library or the virtual branch, which is the website. And so we have electronic resources, which is like our research databases, learning resources that we have on the website. And then we have like our material, like downloadable audio and video, and our ebooks and e-reference materials. Those are all listed there also. And that comes up to the $9 million total at the bottom. So that's kind of the budget. Like I said, it's pretty status quo this year. So
Yeah, Brian, can I clarify real quick?
Yeah.
The $9 million bottom line that you're showing, that does include the 1.7.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, when I sent that to Ellie, I cut that line off and that was my fault. So, but the total is correct.
And that feels about
Yeah,
very similar to
yeah, it is.
that we had last year.
It is. So it's a little bit more because of the self-check and storage system line, but it's pretty much the same.
So what we're doing this morning is, this is part of our budgeting process. We always like to go through the primary expenses as seen in each one of the committee's purview, answer questions, make sure people are comfortable with that. And if the committee is comfortable with what's being recommended, then encourage the committee to make a recommendation to the full board for these expenses to be part of the coming year's budget. So I guess at this point, we would entertain questions and clarifications and ultimately see if the committee is all right with making a recommendation to the full board for the technology budget.
Questions?
Quiet.
I don't have any.
Okay, if there are no questions, we'd entertain a motion that this committee passes on to the
Yeah, it's up there on the.
to the board or the finance. Perfect. We have the resolution on the board. So
This
any,
is Joycelyn. I move approval of the recommendation to the full board for the acceptance of the 2021-2022 technology budget.
thank you. Do we have a second? Oh, I'll second it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed or abstaining? Good, it's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this does help smooth through the whole budgeting process. So we do appreciate that. If we could ask permission, can we go back and approve the minutes from April 19th?
I move approval of the minutes from April 19th, 2021. This is Joycelyn.
Second.
Good, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Good, thank you. Minutes are approved. Next is our annual review.
So
Yeah. So we did, there was a lot of things that kind of came out of the technology group in the last year. And a lot of it was just reacting to COVID situations. But we did, one of the things that we did to enhance our services during the pandemic was we added the Wi-Fi in the parking lots to the outside of the buildings, and that's all formalized now. It was kind of a hodgepodge of stuff in the beginning, but that's all very formalized now. We also enabled a lot of print from home services, so people could print from home. I don't know that got used a lot, but it was something that everyone could do.
anecdotally, something that was very interesting. I had during the pandemic, like right about this time last year, I had to go to a Kinko's FedEx store just for something that I needed to do. And easily half the people in that store were printing something off that they just didn't have home printers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's something that I found interesting. And so we did really ramp that up to make sure people could do that.
We've had that for a long time. I mean, we've had mobile printing from mobile devices and stuff like that if you come in and use our Wi-Fi, but it's something we kind of promoted a little bit more this year. The other thing that we got really deep into this year because we were all working from home was all of our Microsoft 365 stuff. And thankfully we had made an early move to that because it helped us transition into working from home and having staff be able to get to things. We were kind of somewhat prepared for that. So I was really happy about that. We also, we did get some grant money for some various things. We got a grant for the Wi-Fi in the parking lots this year. We got part of the CARES funding through the state, and Jackson County was really great to add some money to that. And that started our Wi-Fi to go service, which is checking out hotspots to people. And that has gone very well. We generally have a couple hundred of those out at all times. So that has gone extremely well. So very happy with that. We're getting ready to pair that with another grant that we got. It's a technology ladder grant through the state. And this is to check out laptops, and we're going to go with Chromebooks, and we're going to be able to bundle those together. I think we're probably going to have around 100 of those, but Alan is working on that right now. So we're going to kind of bundle those together. So if people need internet at home and they need a device at home, they'll be able to check those out and kind of bundle them together and be able to do those things at home. So yeah, I think that's going to be very cool for us to be able to do that. And I'll keep everyone up to date on where we wind up with that. But we just got that approved just last week. Some of the other stuff we talked about last time was just the self-check update and the storage system update that will be coming for next year. But a lot of this year was just spent reacting to COVID, moving PCs around and separating people out, and tons and tons of updates to the website this year, just constantly making sure that people had the info they needed about our closing status, open and close status, what services we had available. We made some changes on how we present what services we list on the website, and make it easy for people to be able to see what we have going on in the branches and system wide. A lot more promotion of of all of our e-resources, research databases, tutor.com, things like that for school kids. So we did a lot of work around that this year, just reacting to the pandemic. So a lot of changes on the website in the last year also, just kind of constant changes.
Yeah, can I add something on the website? About this time last year, we were finishing up with our ADA audit and accessibility audit, which is kind of hard to remember that we did that. So that's something that we've embedded into our annual review, that we have to make sure that our website works well with screen readers and
we have an annual goal around that. It's not listed in the technology pillar of the strategic plan anymore, because it's just kind of it's part of people's jobs now. They're supposed to be doing that and provide us with an annual review for the website. The other one that we do on an annual basis is we do a usability study, so that people to make sure that our navigation is working and people can find things and all those types of things. And that's ongoing every year also. But that is part of the tech pillar, because that's kind of a major thing. We want people to be able to find things on the website. So it was kind of a reactionary year for us. So like everybody else. But I really want to thank the technology staff. They did a great job on all fronts. So they did a fantastic job managing through all of this. So very proud of them.
Hey, Brian, it's Michelle.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to thank you guys because of all the work you've done over the years. You guys really put us in a position to be great. You say you're reactionary, and you were, yes, but I think because of being proactive for so long, I think we were in a great position, as great a position as we could have been with COVID, because of all the work you guys had done. So just wanted to thank you guys for that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle. I really appreciate that. We really tried to look ahead as much as we can and be ahead. That's why I don't know if we were lucky or smart on the Microsoft 365 stuff, but boy, did it sure help us transition in to working from home and being able to keep moving while we were going through this. We didn't have to try and figure out how are we going to communicate and all of those types of things. It was just kind of there for us. So yeah, but I really appreciate that, and I'll pass that on to the rest of the technology group. So
Yeah, no, you guys have always been amazing. So I just think I think a lot of other companies were caught off guard where we were not. So not as much as they were. So anyway,
Yeah.
So thanks again. You guys did a great job.
yeah, thank you very much.
This is Joyce, and I'd like to build on what Michelle said. Definitely huge kudos to the technology crew. I remember, it was a little over 10 years ago when we were thinking about launching the virtual branch in a more formal way. The meeting we had up in Smithville to look at how can we translate the library experience online. And that was back then kind of seen as an enhancement. But during this pandemic, it really became our foundation as everyone became part of the virtual branch there for a while. So I want to give big kudos to the technology staff, as Michelle has said, for laying the foundation so that we can respond. And I give big kudos in the sense that the technology staff was able to be nimble in this situation. If we didn't have the infrastructure in place, the technology staff would not have been able to do much virtually, or as quickly virtually, I should say. So big kudos, thank you, and your communities, thank you, because the library became crucial in maintaining connections and information and quality information in a very uncertain time. So thank you.
Yep, thank you, Joycelyn. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think just to follow along what Michelle and Joycelyn said so well, I just remembered a couple of months ago, we had a feeling within the board itself to extend congratulations to the whole staff. And they got some Robert's Rules of Order restrictive silliness that said we can't say thank you. So, so how about extending the gratitude without a formal motion, but clearly to express the sense that Michelle and Jocelyn said so well.
Yeah, that's great.
Great.
Yeah. So I have a great staff. I'm very lucky to have the staff I have. If you don't know, I manage, well, basically 3 departments. Susan and I kind of share one, sort of right at the moment. But I manage library systems, which is our CRC database. It's all the software that takes care of all of our customers and books and all that kind of stuff. Electronic Resources Department, that has our consumer technology specialist. They do all of our in-branch programming and online programming for the customers. They handle the website. They handle all of our in-house training and manage all of our research databases on there. And then I have the IT department, which takes care of all the networking and servers and PCs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I'm very fortunate. I have a great staff. They just keep moving. And they know what they're supposed to be doing all the time and keep us moving forward and safe and everything. So yeah, I'm very, very lucky to have the staff I have. So got a good group.
Yeah, it's not just that your plate is full, you have 3 plates.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're a good group. I mean, we just kind of set our goals and they just start moving. So they're all really good at what they do. So I'm lucky. So
Good leadership too.
yep.
Okay, are we ready to go on to other business? Which is an open invitation. Before the meeting, there was some discussion with among the group here about hacking into financial matters of the person. And I had that same experience a few years ago. And of course, all the news talked about the pipeline being hacked into. And we're fortunate to have Brian here. So maybe we could touch a little bit on what systems are in place to at least minimize that exposure.
Sure. So we, like most responsible organizations, we at the very core of what we do, we do have a firewall that protects our whole infrastructure for, to put it simply, and Steve uses the best analogy. It's kind of like our network and the way our branches are connected are like a bicycle wheel. It's like a hub and spoke. Everybody comes back here and then they go to the internet. So between us and the internet, we have a firewall that protects us from intruders coming back in. It limits what we can do going out. That's also a responsible thing to do. So if something does get hacked in here, we don't start hacking everybody else out there in the internet, which has never happened in the whole time I've been here. Knock on wood, I guess. But yeah, we do have that in place. We have we have two of those. So there's active, passive. So if one fails, the other one can take over, or if we're doing updates, the other one can take over. We have that in place. All of our servers and everything are all virtualized, which is a little bit safer than having physical servers sitting around, but it's still basically the same thing. We have a disaster recovery site at the Smithville location. So all of our servers and all the data gets replicated to the Smithville location. And then on top of that, we also do just a nightly backup of all of our data. And that gets stored at Smithville, also gets stored offsite. So that's sort of our redundancy that we have built in here to protect our data. And there's archival versions of all of that stuff. So depending on what standard we apply to a server, some are gold level, some are silver level or bronze level. We kind of color code everything. But those get, so some of those some of those we store for several months. Some of them we just store for a few weeks. It kind of depends on the level that we need them to be around, if we need them to. And the backup does the same thing. But anytime we make any change here during the day, it immediately gets replicated to the Smithville location. That's an active thing that we have going on. For all of our staff desktops and all that kind of stuff, we use Kaspersky antivirus and malware software. It's running on all of the desktops to protect against viruses and malware and those types of things. And there's a centralized console that the IT staff uses to manage all that and make sure that we're up to date all the time on. And that's worked pretty well. That's worked really well. Past that, we do an annual audit with Morenet. And it's kind of a security audit. They ask us a lot of questions about, are you rotating your passwords? Are you doing this with your servers? Is your network doing this? And we do really well on that every year. And every year the standards increase. And so we learn some things and we have to make some changes, but we do very well on that. And then also annually, we schedule an intrusion audit. And that is where it's through Morenet again, but they hire a third-party company and they basically run an intrusion test against our firewall and our network. They do it internally and then from externally to see if there's any holes in our network or anything that we need to patch or do those things with. So we do all of that also. And the one for this year is coming up.
Right.
I don't have any results of that, but we normally do very well on that one also.
Great. Yeah. One thing there's a much watered down level than your discussion. But one thing I was at least curious about would be there are clearly systems to keep bad things out, not bad people, just bad stuff. But I hate the word censoring, but for lack of a better one, is there some system in place so if I were to go into the Antioch branch, I couldn't use the computer access to do something which is entirely outside the scope of what those were intended for?
On the public PCs, yes, there is. There totally is. Those are secured in a ton of crazy ways to keep people from scanning our network and installing anything on any of the PCs. So yeah, there's just nothing I mean, if our public PCs are all virtualized, so they technically are running in here, you're just seeing what's running in here on your screen. And every time that you end your session, that gets wiped out and a new one gets put in place for the person. So even if they could get something on there, as soon as they were done, it would get wiped out. Which is great for us, but it's also good for the customer because we don't store any of their history or do anything like that, which is really nice. So we don't track what they're doing or anything, and we also don't we don't keep any of that data around or do any of that kind of stuff. But that gets totally blown away every time. On the staff side, each user that logs in, they log in as what we call a limited user. So they can't just start installing things or doing things. So if you walked up to a staff machine and started trying to do that type of stuff, you couldn't do that. The Kaspersky antivirus and malware software helps us out with that also. And the other thing the staff are supposed to be doing when they walk away from one is just locking the PC so that, somebody can't walk up and just start using it.
Sure.
They're not just supposed to leave it sitting there like they would, like when I walk away from mine in my office, half the time I just leave it open, but they're not supposed to do that in a public setting. So
I was also thinking not so much of the actual devices as the content going through it. For example, again, I can't think it's too early in the morning. Think of a better word than censoring, but we're stuck with it. If I were to get on a computer and start trying to find access to how to stop a pipeline, are there any ways of at least overseeing the content that's being accessed?
no, not other than just adult.
We do have the content
We
filter.
have the content filter, and that's what I was getting ready to say.
Yeah.
It's strictly for adult content. It's not. We're not scanning for how do I make a bomb
Or how to get my brother-in-law out of the Clay County Jail or something. Okay.
Yeah. We're not scanning for any of that kind of stuff. It's simply for adult content and that type of stuff. So that's all we're doing.
And obviously illegal content that would fall into that general realm. So for example, under no circumstances child pornography ever legal in the United States.
Right.
In some cases, there are arguments that pornography is legal in certain circumstances, but child pornography is never legal. And so that is always filtered.
Right. Yeah. Any of that type of stuff is. Yeah. We're definitely scanning for that. I mean, we do give people the choice as to whether they want filtered or not if they're 18 or older. But when we run the reports on that, it's like 96.5% of our sessions are filtered all the time.
Yeah.
Even given the choice, they choose filtered.
Yeah, I wasn't defaming my brother-in-law. He's not in jail.
But this is an interesting point. I mean, so that people do have some sort of an understanding that they're computing in a public setting. And so in many cases, they choose filtered, because they don't want to inadvertently cross something, which is a nice thing. And that 96% number is a little shocking. I always thought it would be much lower than that, frankly.
It's not. It's all. We look at it every year, and every year it's 95.5 to 96.5% of the sessions are filtered.
The other interesting filtering, which this isn't content filtering, but email filtering. So one of the things that ends up happening is there's a lot of spam, a lot of junk, a lot of phishing email, malware, things like that. What's our current level of? Because I know our spam filter. Last time you told me it captures something like 90% of all the email that comes.
Yeah, it always hovers around 85 or 90% of the email that comes into our system is flagged as some kind of a suspicious email or something that it doesn't know about, and it drops it into a quarantine thing so we can look at it. All staff gets like a quarantine report every day of what's in quarantine, and they can look at it or not. If it rises to a certain level, the malware detection stuff in Microsoft will just clean it off.
Terrific.
And it'll send an alert to our system admin saying, hey, this suspicious stuff is coming in. If there's any weird going on in there, it'll start sending messages.
System admin, he'll send out these email messages that say, hey, if you saw this email, do not open it, do not click on it.
Yeah.
When he has identified certain.
They get a ton of reports on that stuff every day. So Yeah.
I get 300, 400 email messages a day, but technically that's only 10% of what's actually heading to me.
Yeah, it's a mountain of email that comes into our system every day. I mean, it's literally a mountain, and like 90% of it gets cleaned off at the door.
But that's one of the reasons why something like Colonial was able to happen, is because there's so much email going through, not necessarily being able to get filtered or tagged. Our system's doing a pretty good job of that. We also secure the human through technology.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, go. We don't want to step on you.
Security training with the staff. So on how to handle this stuff and how to use strong passwords and do all those types of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, even more reason to compliment them on keeping everything afloat.
Yeah.
So there's probably two more things to mention that I want to make sure that we mention. Brian may have other things. One thing from Quan's perspective, just pure risk management insurance.
Yeah.
We've had insurance for a long time in terms of cybersecurity and malware and things like that. If people were to hold our catalog hostage, it happens. St. Louis Public Library actually had their online catalog as a ransomware situation, just like Colonial Pipeline. I don't know what they thought they were going to get out of St. Louis County Library. I mean, it's not like St. Louis Public Library. It's not like not like they're an oil company. But it does happen to folks. But we put that rider in place a long time ago. Now, granted, what that does is that won't necessarily stop a malware attack from us or a ransomware attack. But it does put us in a situation where we can get the resources that we need to restore everything that we need to do. And so, I think that's certainly one of the big things that we've done to kind of secure ourselves. And then moving forward, if you go back, Joycelyn will remember this. One of our biggest defenses against hackers and all of that back in the day was that our technology was so old that there weren't that many people on the planet that could actually get into our technology. I mean, there was a combination. I remember right around Y2K, our programmer there was something like 20 people in the world who had the skill set that Rollo had in terms of the operating system and the language systems and things like that. So there just weren't, there was no there. And so that was one of the ways that we protected ourselves. Well, we've upgraded and done a lot better, but then that also increases your risk. One of the things that we've done to mitigate the library's risk is we have started putting more things into the cloud and then shifting the risk to our third-party vendor. So,
Yeah, so I was going to say that. Yeah, so the Microsoft thing is one of them. Obviously, our library system from CRC Dynix is actually hosted by CRC. It's not hosted by us. Our catalog from BiblioCommons is hosted by BiblioCommons. It's not hosted by us. Our website is hosted out in the cloud because it's kind of a unique setup. Paycor that we do all of our paying of employees is hosted out in the cloud. And the good part about there's pluses and minuses to doing all of this, obviously. But one of the good part from a malware or a ransomware attack is if they attack our website vendor, it doesn't hit everything else that we do. If they attack BiblioCommons for our catalog, it's bad, but CRC Dynix is still okay, and all of our stuff that we still host in here is okay. It can't cross-pollinate between all of those services. And so having some of that distributed is actually a really good thing because it lessens the impact if it does happen. So we've moved some of that out into the cloud. So all of our email is hosted out there. A lot of our files through Microsoft are starting to be hosted out there. And so, it's kind of helping us limit the impact of if something happens. So
the other thing's economy of scale. So like, for example, one thing I remember that happened with us once is our catalog went down. There was problems and our catalog went down, which meant if people went to our library and they wanted to look up a James Patterson book and couldn't remember the title, they were kind of out of luck unless our staff could remember what the title was. And so, we called our database provider and said, hey, we need to get this back up. And they said, we'll get to it when we get to it and yada, yada, yada. Well, bottom line, we don't deal with those folks anymore because we didn't like their approach. But the bigger issue was there was no economy of scale. We were a little fish. I mean, even as big as we are, we were a little fish in that pond. And so again, in terms of mitigating risk, if someone were to do a cyber attack on Biblio Commons, where we get our catalog today, it wouldn't just be us that's at risk. It would be tons of libraries throughout the United States that were all getting that same pain, which I think would end up meaning that Biblio Commons would, shift into gear. Because there's a better consolidation of.
Biblio Commons is a shared platform. Paycor is a shared platform. CRC is becoming a shared platform, but we're not in that shared platform. When they host our stuff for us, we have our own server there because we're big enough to warrant one. And then that's replicated to an offsite where they have another server just like it. So they take care of all the replication and backup on it.
Even if their big data service their big data center, hundreds of libraries throughout the world would be hit, which means they would want to get their act together.
Even if it was just us, they wouldn't mess around on that. I mean, that's our core server everything goes against that core server. I mean, all of our self checks, all of our PCs, our website, that is a cornerstone of our setup here is the CRC Dynix services. So,
but our HR records now are virtualized in the cloud.
Yeah.
One big system that's not virtualizing that Brian keeps pushing me on and Alan's pushing me a little bit, and I keep pushing back a little bit, is our financial services. Our Quan server is over in that room, and there's some advantages and disadvantages. I mean, obviously, we've seen the advantages of virtualizing things in terms of mitigating risk.
Sure.
But it is all of our money, and so it's something I'm a little more cautious about. But the bigger issue is that our software vendor, Blackbaud, that's the name of the company that does that, is virtualizing everything. So if we want to stay up to date with the latest software, we may have to go in the cloud whether we want to or not. So
that's sort of the way Paycor is, or the way Biblio Commons is. You don't really have a choice. You use their shared platform or you don't use them. And that's the way a lot of it's going now. I mean, Microsoft is heading.
Microsoft's that way.
I mean, you're going to be in the cloud in some form or another with them. There's not any getting around it really too much anymore. So it's not kind of the way things are heading.
Yeah, so it's not just like it's the best practices, it's the universally accepted.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's probably a discussion and a decision that will,
Sure.
There's some more virtualization that Brian and I've been talking about, breaking the hub and spoke a little bit. Maybe creating a couple of additional hubs out in the world, maintaining the security, but still having a little bit quicker throughput. But the really big thing that we might be investigating for the coming year is moving Quan's financial server into the cloud. So. And then I have to admit, it's a little scary. It is a little scary, but.
Yeah, it's pluses and minuses to all of it. So you just have to weigh it.
Sure.
Brian and I are never going to sit here and say that we are 1000% certain that nothing bad will ever happen to our technology. It can happen. It can, no matter what we do and how we do it. But I think we've positioned ourselves to decrease risk, to make sure that if something bad were to happen, we can get up as quickly as possible, that the public's investment in our technology would never be wasted, that it can always be restored and back to where we need to be. So, we feel very good about it, and hopefully
I do.
Hopefully you all do too.
I do.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, you dial the clock back 10 years and I wouldn't be able to say that. But yeah, we're in a great place. We have tons of redundancy built in, just from everyday things like a power outage, from those types of things, from a server collapsing in here on us. And from our security stuff that we do every day. I feel pretty comfortable. So we can get moving again if something did happen. And I feel very confident that we wouldn't have like a system-wide outbreak, but the ransomware and malware and those types of things change so fast. That's why you keep hearing about this stuff, because they're staying ahead of the security all the time. So you just have to kind of keep on top of it and stay ahead of it as good as you can. So
Yeah, yeah, kind of a model I've had for some time, just my own, is that for the past few years has been appropriate and absolutely fitting celebration for the changes and everything. I still remember being blown away when Antioch was opened up 2 years ago. But none of that, absolutely, obviously, we couldn't have redone the branches unless the branches were there. And I think we're looking at not the superficial stuff at all, but the changes of things that were in place by absolute pioneers, like the guys who pictures over there by the coffee pot. And there's a foundation of this that I think doesn't get, at least in my opinion, the awareness that I think is due. And I think maybe in the same case with the physical stuff, the brick and mortar started decades ago. You're doing that same thing now within the past decade.
Yeah, yeah. The buildings are in a great way also. So
Means in 20 years somebody else will get all the credit.
yeah. I may not hear about it in 20 years. But
You would.
it would be nice to know.
No, but truly, these tremendous efforts on the physical side of it this is on the foundation of absolute pioneering efforts and sacrificial effort, I think, in many cases by people who have given us what we have right now.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you.
This is Joyce, and I have two quick things to follow up on the discussion of security from attacks. Part of this, we've talked mostly about how we protect the library, but part of this is also protecting the public. People have to come in, plug their little jump drives into the computers to download stuff, and then they go home and plug that into their computers as well. And part of the virtualizing in the stations and a lockdown of those stations protect both ways. Viruses coming in and viruses going out from people using computer after computer. So that's a good thing. The second thing is the use of Chromebooks versus laptops. Chromebooks are basically you log in as all your files are in the cloud when you use them that way. So there's very little chance of transmission from user to user as those are being swapped out because you have to log in as a particular person. Nothing really is stored on the equipment itself. The other thing I wanted to say was to follow up on Ron. One of the other ways that we provide kind of awareness that people are using the computer systems in a public setting is that when they log in, they have to agree to a computer user agreement. And it states in there, you reckon this is a public setting, you're not supposed to do anything unusual, and they have to agree to that every time they log in. So those are some things that are already in place that haven't been mentioned.
Good.
Yeah, thanks for that, Joycelyn. Those are all great points. So we don't store any customer information. We don't store it on the network. We can't track any of those things, and that's a great privacy point for our customers. I remember when we went through the Prop L, we did the community meetings afterwards, and I remember having several conversations with people that were asking me about, what happens on those. I'm like, we wipe it out between every session. We don't keep any of that. And the knowledge that they can come in and plug a flash drive in and know that there's not something on those devices every time is really important. That's always been super important to me that those PCs get cleaned up between every session, every time. And there's no way for those things to get on there. And it's not it's great to hear you say it, Joycelyn, because that makes me know that we've been doing what we're supposed to be doing and letting you know that that's the way that it is. Because I always said when I was even an IT manager that I want the administration here to know, to be able to talk to a customer or to the public and say, oh no, we never keep that info. That's wiped out every single time. There's no way that the PC can be hacked and your information can be leaked. That can't happen. There's no way for somebody to come in from the outside and get to a public PC and monitor what you're doing. That cannot happen. And I always wanted to be 100% confident in that all the time. So, and we still stay true to that today. So I appreciate you saying that, Joycelyn.
And it's two sides. I mean, one thing is that philosophically, I mean, libraries tend to believe that that everyone has intellectual freedom and the ability to research and to get information that they want without somebody looking over their shoulder. So there's a philosophical argument, but there's also a legal argument in the state of Missouri. There's actually a patron privacy law that kind of prevents us from doing that. But we've really taken it very seriously. And so, yeah, I mean, we've had a situation in the past where, this is many, many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, where we had somebody who was actually attacking the Best Buy servers from our Liberty branch. And then, like I said, this was 20 years ago. And actually, it was Mornet who discovered that it was happening, and they discovered it in real time. And so that allowed us to react in a slightly different way. But yeah, right now, that something like that would be, you never want to say impossible, but it'd be really hard.
Sure.
Really, really hard to do that.
Yep.
And thank you. Any other comments or questions while we're still together? Or convened? All right, well, for the members of the committee, thank you for attending, and of course, thank you for Brian and Steve and Teresa. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
This is Joyce, I'm so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I think it's just you, Ron.
Yeah, you may be the only one.
Okay, we're done.
Thank,